Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Bullish on Business. Well, and today we have Denise with us. How are you doing today, Denise?
I'm excited to be here. That's how I'm doing.
Well, we're excited to have you. So today's guest, as I said, is Denise Roberts. She is a leader, a coach, and a strategist who brings together the mindset and the sales muscle, and the collaborative spirit of partnership. Through her brand, Playing to Win, what a great name, Denise helps entrepreneurs and teams shift from playing it safe to going all in, not just in mindset, but in how they sell, partner, and scale. If you've ever felt stuck in your business growth, held back by fear, or unsure how to structure alliances that actually will move your needle forward, Denise's story and frameworks are going to push you. So get ready. We talk inner critic, execution, building a high trust partnerships, and more. So let's jump in and see what it means to truly play to win, not just in your head, but in your business. So, well, I'm so excited to have you with me. So I was wondering, you would tell everyone in the podcast what makes you tick, Denise.
Well, I'd love to. So let me start by what you may or may not know about me, Rose, is that I started my sales career decades ago, hiding on a staircase in tears before I made my first prospecting call. I was petrified that I would be rejected. And I was given a 3-month guarantee and then a draw against commission. And I am almost embarrassed to tell you, I spent 2.5 months of that 3 months creatively avoiding making any prospecting calls. So here it is. It's the day after Christmas. I've got 2 weeks left of this guarantee. And I said, my manager said, "What do you want to do today?" And I said, "I want to go cold call the Renaissance Center." My territory was downtown Detroit. And he said, "Great, go for it." And I said, "The only problem is I don't know how to get there." So that should have been his first sign that something was wrong with this picture. So I drive downtown, park, and I creatively avoided making any calls for another 2 hours by having a very long lunch. And then I finally mustered some courage, went to the 400 tower, pushed for the top button. And as the doors were opening on the elevator, my confidence was going down, and I was praying to God that there was not a receptionist sitting there. Can you relate? So the doors open, there's not a receptionist, but I do see a woman who said, "Can I help you?" And I said, "No, I'm on the wrong floor." And I ran to the staircase, and I literally hid between the 39th and 38th floor. And I did that on purpose because I felt I was safe. Unless there was a fire, no one was going up or down that many flights of stairs.
Right.
And what I did is I burst into tears.
Mhm.
And I said, "Who are you kidding? You're not a salesperson. Go home. You got a husband, you got 2 kids. Where was it written in your marriage contract you tell copiers and make big bucks?" It wasn't. So I was ready to go home. Remember, we talk about that inner critic. I then heard it as a little voice. And you know, those two voices in your head. One is, "You can do it." The other one is, "Who are you kidding?" So the one voice said, "Go home." And the other voice said, "You haven't even tried. The least you could do is try. Because if you go home right now, you're going to hate yourself the rest of your life." And I dried my eyes and I started my sales career that day, Rose.
Oh
But
my
that,
gosh. Oh my
yeah.
gosh.
And that
Wow.
also started a quest to take the pain and discomfort away from prospecting.
I think
And
we can
that
all
led,
relate to that though. It's so relatable.
yeah, yeah.
No matter how many years you've been in the business, even today, I'm embarking on something brand new. And believe it, Denise, those words are helping my heart right now. Because whenever you do something new or different, you have that doubt. Whether,
Yeah.
am I doing it right? Do I even know what I'm doing? So that is such a relatable feeling. How did you get through it? How did you
Well,
um finish it?
I started my career that day and I didn't sell anything that day and I got behind the eight ball and I was actually salesman of the month and didn't even see a commission check because I had to pay back that draw.
Oh,
But
but you
I
did get some
swore,
traction. Sounds like you got some
pardon me?
traction. You got
Yeah, I
some.
finally got some traction. And then but I said I would never let that happen again. And then I looked for, could I help not only myself, and I created a training called Painless Prospecting. And then I said, wonder if others would like this. And that put me on a quest for a long time. But what was bubbling up in the background, and it took years for it to come to the surface, was don't let doubt take you out.
Ooh, I like
Because
the sound of that. Don't let
that's,
doubt take you out. That's perfect.
yep, because that's what was happening. I was allowing um, all the fears and discomfort that I wouldn't do it right, I wouldn't say it right, I wouldn't be right, I wouldn't look right. All those things kept getting in the way. And but you have to go through something to get to the other side.
So
And that's what I
true.
had to go through.
That's so true. Well, what a great origin story. So we're going to go with your tagline. You know, your tagline asks this question: are you playing to win or playing not to lose? What's the turning point in your life or work when you realized that you were choosing the latter, and how did you flip it?
So that's another story. So thanks for asking, Rose. About 20 years ago, I was at a very intensive experiential training program that brought a bunch of strangers together, put them into teams, had them compete against each other to see if you could gel as a championship team in only 1 week.
Hmm,
And by the way, there was lots and lots of pressure put on us.
wow.
Each day there was more pressure, more pressure. And so one of those competitions was a volleyball game. Now, I never played a sport in my life, so I wasn't sure what I could contribute to my team. And needless to say, if the ball came towards me, I pulled away and the ball fell. And and so the creator of this program knew that if a team never has a win, because he's throwing all sorts of people together, you could get a team of jocks and you get a team of me, right? And when you bring those kind of people together, if you never have a win, you begin to believe you never will have a win. So he made the other team play on their knees against us,
Okay.
and we still lost.
Oh gosh.
And that's when he said to us, Team Four, you are playing not to lose versus playing to win. Get
Ooh.
off the court, and when you figure that out, you can come back.
Wow, that is power. That is
Yep.
so powerful. So that flipped it. Really cool story. Wow. Well, you appear to have strong grounding. I think prospecting is really scary too. And but your grounding in sales and partnerships, I looked at your LinkedIn identity. Wow. How do you connect your mindset to playing to win with the skills of selling and forming alliances? How do you make that alliance work? I know that that's one of the things that you're known for.
Well, let me expand on I renamed my business Playing to Win, but then I added something to that because if you think about it, um, playing I added playing to win together.
Oh, okay.
Because usually in sales, it's like paddling your own kayak, right? If you
Yes.
think about it, the world of sales is very competitive.
Mhm.
There's salesman of the month, salesman of the year, right? Only
Right.
one winner, it's winner
Right.
take all. So
Yep.
there's a lot of that. And when you don't win, what does that do to your mindset? I suck, I'm not good, I'm, blah.
What am
And
I
so you
doing
start
here?
to,
Imposter syndrome.
yeah, you start to spiral. And
Right.
so, but the irony is, if you think about when we played that volleyball game, why, what you didn't hear the other end of the story is we
Oh,
did
keep
figure it out.
going.
Yeah, we did figure it out. We did
Okay.
figure out, and that we came back the very next day because I wasn't the only one. We needed practice. We needed to work together. He does this on purpose to have you get intense with each other because we started pointing fingers and yelling at each other and everything else. And that's what happens when we're put in a pressure situation often. We start blaming, or
Mhm.
we make ourselves wrong, or make someone else wrong, or the situation is wrong, versus someone who had a cooler mindset, who wasn't our leader, stepped up and said, I think I can help. And so he led us. So the team had to collaborate. See, we were originally just 7 people out there doing our own thing.
Mhm.
Think about business. Lots of salespeople, lots of individuals do that too, versus
Right.
collaborating. When we collaborated, we actually beat everybody the next day.
What? That's a great
And and
story.
and the creator said, I could stop this training right now because of what Team 4 just did. However, we imploded on another part of the process. That's another story for another day. But you have to go through those pieces. Are you willing to stick it out and work through it?
Mhm.
And that's why even when you compete in sales or you're in business, you have to collaborate with others. You have to start because you cannot do this and grow and scale and do everything on your own.
Right.
You need people around you. You need a team,
Mhm.
whether it's even if you're a solopreneur, there are teams of people around you who can be supportive, who can say, okay, I've been there, I've done that. Here's my thoughts. Here's what
Mhm.
I could help and contribute to you. So,
True.
yeah.
True. You know, it makes me think of the comfort zone because I'm actually going through a class right now, and the class is really how to leverage social media in a very rather than just posting, but kind of in an in-depth prospecting approach. And I thought, oh, this is going to be easy. I'm good at posting. I've been doing that for a long time. But getting into it, just starting to work in this field, this area, I didn't get immediate success. So I was thinking, well, maybe I was uncomfortable, is what I'm saying. I was totally uncomfortable. And so, even though I wasn't with a team, I was with my team, like a Facebook group team, rather than
Yep.
I think we have a lot of teams online these days. And then they were there for me. But I don't think a day goes by that if you're really growing, don't you think if you're growing,
Constantly.
these things are going to reappear? And no matter how much we always can really learn from a coach or to be reminded of these things, I just think that you're bringing so many truths to the table today. So,
Well, actually, uh, when you did my introduction, you called me a strategist, a coach, a leader. I like to also think of myself as a trainer because it's like I learned and now I want to share it.
mm,
And so, hence the book, the programs I've done, and that's
the
where I am at
book,
this stage of my life.
talking about your book. Let's talk
Oh, sorry.
about
The Don't Let Doubt Take You Out is the upcoming book
Oh,
that
don't let doubt take you out. That same friend. Wow. That's when is it coming out? When do you think you'll have
it's
it?
at the editor now, so I'm being told probably early first quarter. So
Oh,
within a few months. So,
good, good. Well, definitely keep our eyes open for that. So don't let doubt take you out. Definitely will stay in my mind. Looking forward to that. So let's go on here. Many entrepreneurs overthink the deals and worry about giving up too much. Overthink, just overthink it. And how do you coach someone into partnerships from abundance rather than from scarcity.
Well, if we go back to that tagline, don't let, playing to win versus playing not to lose.
Right.
Playing not to lose is hesitating. It's doubting. It's worrying about, how will this look? How will I look? So it's all that fear, uncertainty, and doubt that's running around.
Mhm.
And if I go back to um, the idea that instead of coming from scarcity, because now where's your focus? If
Mm.
your focus is on what am I going to lose versus what can we build together?
Mhm.
What's the possibility here versus this isn't going to work because of.
Right, right.
So
That
it's
is so true. And so I know that you have a 12-week cohort and you address internal dynamics. You talk about the inner critic, the inner mentor, and the external dynamics, team, clients, partnerships. How do you really balance the inner and the outer in those two different realms in your cohort?
great question, Rose. So let's look at um, inner critic, inner mentor comes from a book called Playing Big. And it was written by Tara Moore.
Oh,
And
I was just on her Facebook page today.
yeah,
Or not
and
Facebook, LinkedIn website. Sorry.
Tara refers to your inner critic is the when you're at the edge of your comfort zone, right? It starts to chirp. And the further you go into that field of not knowing, the louder it gets. And its job is to protect you. It doesn't want you to fail, but we're never going to grow if we stay in that comfort zone. As you know, as you've already referred to, growth is on the other side of that. And so we start to get all worried about, am I going to do it wrong? Am I going to say it wrong? What's going to happen here? And so that's what the inner critic starts to do, and it will start chirping at you. The inner mentor is the other side of that. The inner mentor only comes, according to Tara, when you call it forth. It's like God looking over at you, right? Kind of saying, but you have to say, okay, where could this go? And you start to call it forth versus where could I end up versus am I going to fail? So it's coming from that place. So in the 12-week cohort, everybody creates something they want to accomplish, something that they want to achieve in a 12-week time frame. And we've got rigor around that. There's commitments they make and steps that they take and so on and so forth. But like anything else, if you're thinking big, you go, oh, I want to accomplish this in 12 weeks. And maybe you only got this far instead of all the way out here.
Mm.
And we'll start to doubt, make ourselves wrong, play smaller, pull back. The inner critic is going, see, I told you, right? It's like, uh, versus if you can talk to your inner critic and say, I get that you're here to protect me. Let's just let me play with this a little bit, right? But if you try to ignore it or fight with it, it only gets louder and it
Yeah.
will always win. So don't try to fight with it. Say, I hear you. I understand. I hear what's coming up. And now say, let's play with this. And I'll be cautious, but let's play with it, right? Because sometimes you just have to verbalize it. It's just a feeling. And until that feeling can be crystallized into, oh, you're afraid you're going to bet the farm and you're going to lose everything,
Mhm.
you know? And
Right. Right.
whatever that is, whatever, and sometimes it's minimal. You're afraid I'm going to be embarrassed. I'll give you a classic just today. I uh something I do now is I work with people with their human wiring. And your human wiring is what you are born with. It's different than something like DISC or Myers-Briggs. Those are behavior-based. This is how you were born. And once you understand it, it clears up a lot of things. One of mine is impatience. I like to juggle lots of things. I have lots of things going on, and I get behind the eight ball. And I was reaching out to someone. Actually, I spoke on human wiring a few days ago, and there were about 10 people that wanted me to follow back up with them. So they gave me their card, and I called them, and I'm not hearing back. So I called again. And then I left in the voicemail, I said, look, and if you're not interested any longer, that's fine. Just please let me know. And then I went, oh my God, because I was impatient,
Right.
not understanding what's going on in their world right now. Maybe they're on vacation. I don't know, right? So I I went back and I said, oh, how could I take, because it's a voicemail. Like, how do I
Right.
take it back? So I actually wrote something and I said, I hope you don't, it didn't come out right out of my mouth is what was going on in my head. And I am impatient, as you can see, because I talked about that in the wiring. And yet I'm not trying to push you or stalk you. I just want to know what's your preferred method of communication, because mine is to call.
Right.
Yours might be an email or a text. And I actually had someone say a phone call they felt was rude. I went,
That's something, isn't it?
yeah, it
That's
is. And it's just because what is their inner critic saying? Oh, how rude of her.
right. Well, and I think that there's a lot of just perception these days. It's an
All perception.
all perception. It's like, oh no, I'm on the spot. I've got to answer the phone. I know that when I was coming into the world, it was like, yay, I've got a phone call. Now it's like, whoa, what do they want from me? So yeah, it's just a different world we live in. But a lot of people do need the communication. I know that follow up is so critical. I was told that it's, following up is so critical. You have, I don't even remember the colloquialism about it, but if you follow up 3 times from a sales perspective, that's pretty important, because people forget, people get busy. Um, but and I know that you say that to me, Denise, you're one of the most approachable, smiling. When you encourage, I feel like it's encouragement, not
Thank
not
you.
a, not a negative. I feel the vibe that you care, and I feel the vibe that you want to help me push the needle, pull the needle forward. And so I'm sure that, you might get some that just are not interested or whatever, but to me, you're just helping me push my needle forward, and that's what we need in you. That's what your
Thank you.
secret sauce is. That's what you bring to us, and we love that about you. I'm excited about this 12-week cohort. I think it sounds so cool that you work on the inside. So you took us through the inner critic and then the inner mentor, and that really made me kind of pause because yeah, you're right. Our subconscious and our lizard brain is always nipping at us. And it sounds like you're saying that we need to take a pause and say, wait a minute, I always think, what would my best friend tell me, or what would my mentor tell me about that? But who does that? I would need a pencil and a paper with me to stop that inner critic. I don't know if you, in your coaching,
Well,
I'm sure you go through that.
so as I said, I like to teach. So let me share. This is kind of a teaching moment here, Rose, um, and none of this is my own brilliance. This is things I've learned and I've learned because I had to learn it. because I got confronted with something. But this particular man had said that think of learning as like a three-legged stool. The first piece of this is awareness. Oh, I didn't know that. Now I know that.
Mm.
The second leg of the stool is understanding. And now the and we think that that's enough. Most training in our business world is based on, well, they didn't know and now they know and they passed a test so they understand, right?
Mhm.
So now they should have it.
Right.
Except the third leg of the stool is proficiency.
Uh,
And just because I know it and I understand it doesn't mean I have it.
mm,
How do you get proficient? So let me ask, how do you get proficient?
practice,
Thank
doing,
you. Practice.
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 That's how you
Yeah.
get to Carnegie Hall, right?
Well, but we live in this quick world.
Yeah.
I ChatGPT said to do this,
Oh,
or
right. Right.
I saw it. I watched a video, a YouTube video on it. This
Yes.
influencer had said
Yeah.
that she did this, and now, but that influencer might have come up with the idea, and when I created painless prospecting, it was for therapy for me, but
Yeah.
I still had to keep using it over and over and over again. And then I started to share it with other people.
Oh, this is awesome. This is so good. This is good stuff. I'm just so impressed. I'm so excited. You're really hitting some nerves here. So let's move to
Thanks.
the external dynamic, the teams, the clients. How do you how do you balance both of those realms in that 12-week cohort?
Well, a lot of the people, so I've done it in several ways. There's some components to it. Um, and originally it came out of COVID when we
Oh,
were all locked down. I went, okay, the environment out there says it's dangerous. You can't go out there. Yet I think you're going to die, and then it was, well, your business is definitely going to die if you aren't reaching out to people. So I reached out to 5 other women business owners that I knew, and I said, I'm committed to not letting my business die during this. Are you? And then how can we support each other? So every
oh,
one of us
you're
created.
such a gem. Wow. That is so good. Did they all take you up on it?
Yeah, they all did. We all got together and we would come
Oh,
on a Zoom call every week and we would take actions. You talked about execution. We would take actions to move our needle.
right.
And we just stayed in action because the the environment said curl up in a ball and wait this out, but
Yeah,
hope nobody knew what this is and how long this will last.
right.
And so we just started meeting and people were taking actions. And then there was, because when one person would say, I don't know, I'm really afraid of this. And then we would open it up for discussion. And well, what's your thoughts or feedback? And then we would say, we had one rule in there, there was no yeah butting.
Oh, I hate
So
it. I know. So,
yeah, we would open it up for a contribution. You didn't have to take the advice, but you couldn't negate it. You couldn't say, "Oh, I've tried that before. That's not going to work," or "That's not going to work in my household." Da 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 da. Right? Because the moment you do, you've sucked the air out of all the possibilities,
mhm.
right? And you could say, "Hadn't thought about that," and you might ask more questions, but you couldn't yeah but it. And when you start to, because that again, we were aware and we had an understanding, but that doesn't mean we had proficiency in not yeah butting.
Well, we have years of experience of the yeah buts. I heard somebody tell me no more yeah buts. It's yes and.
Yeah.
Yes and, right? I love
Yes,
that.
and
Yes and. Wow, that must have been a good way to make it through that terrible time
it
of
it
COVID.
was, and the irony was, they called it a pod, and I didn't name it that. I refer to it as a supportive applied learning environment. Right? And if you look at that as an acronym, it spells out SAIL.
Yeah,
supportive,
I like
applied learning environment. And
it.
it wasn't intentional, but that's just how it came out.
That's so cool. So can you share a transformation story, maybe where someone doubled their sales or landed a pivot deal because they shifted their mindset that you know about?
Certainly, because this 12-week idea that I did during COVID was something I had been doing variations of in my past. I would, if I go back to proficiency, how do you get proficiency? Is you do it again and again and again. So we would put a time frame on it, a 12-week time frame. So I used to run a boot camp. It was called Objection Handling Boot Camp, but it took in more than just sales. It took in, what are you objecting to in your own head, right? What's that inner critic saying I can't do? And people would come to this, and we would talk to them after their time was up with us. And one guy, he was in leasing, the leasing business of leasing properties. And he normally would do 4 leases a month. That was pretty consistent for him. And he'd been doing it for 16 years. And he one time came in and said, all right, I'm going to challenge myself with 5 leases this month. And so I even said, are you willing for a stretch goal? How about 6?
Ooh.
And he went for it, and he said, I have never in 16 years done 6, and he did 2 in 2 months, 6 each time.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's amazing. What a
Yeah. And then we started to talk
story.
about what was that worth to them, because this is a 1-year lease and so on and so forth. And it was fun because years later he sent me one of his coworkers, and she had a mindset of this property won't allow pets, and everybody has a pet. And so she couldn't lease this property in her head. So we challenged her with, do you think there might be anybody who doesn't have a pet, maybe even in this room? And there were 2 of us in the room that didn't have pets. And she went, really? So then when she shifted that, she immediately filled all those spaces.
Isn't
Just,
that funny? I mean,
it's just,
something is,
yeah,
that is, thank you for that. That's not a rocket science. That's that, but to help somebody just
just,
get
just
out
a
of
little
it
tweak.
with a tweak, and it's, they didn't have to take medication, they didn't have to go to therapy. You just said, hey, let's just look at this a different point of view.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
And then there was another guy who put his entire sales team in it. And one of the things he liked was he saw massive progression with his team, because each week, because one of the key points of any of our trainings is you make a weekly commitment.
Okay.
What are you going to commit to do between now and then? And you'd come back and you would say, I did this and this was the outcome, or I didn't do this and this was the outcome, right?
Mm,
And
right.
because you were in, and not like commitment and shame, but from commitment, what can I take on? That people would challenge themselves and try things and then go, holy moly, this was not as hard as I thought. And they got more appointments, and more appointments led to more sales. And it just went on. I mean, this guy did, because he had a high ticket item when he was selling. I think his team generated $110,000 in the course of 12 weeks
Wow. That's a
on a
great,
very minimal investment, so it was, yeah. So these are the kinds of things that can happen.
wow. That is great. And so what they did is they set their own milestones every week.
Yeah, every week they came back and they said, I'm going to do X number of calls, or we let them pick.
Right.
And then they could also see, were they being too aggressive,
Mhm.
right? I'm going to make 100 calls between now and next week. And they'd come back and we'd say, how many did you make? 10,
So that
you
was
know?
unrealistic. So very cool. Yeah. Oh my gosh. So we are really cooking here. I'm going to switch gears to accountability because it is your foundation. What's one structure, tool, or agreement you always put in place to keep someone accountable, especially when business gets chaotic?
Again, it's back to what do they commit to, not what I tell them to do. What are they going to commit to, and by when will they do it?
What if they're too
So
soft
when,
on themselves?
sorry?
What if they're too soft on themselves?
Well, we let them, sometimes you got to have a little win. And then you come back and then we debrief it. So every time, whatever the commitment is, inside that 12-week cohort, inside of working with a company, inside of a project lab, profitability lab, no matter what I'm doing, people come back with, and we debrief it. And the debrief goes through these 4 questions.
Hmm.
So the first question is what worked? And
I'm gonna write that.
the next, what worked? It's not what went right or what went wrong. It's what worked. What did you do good? What did you do bad? Those have judgments. This is what worked. What didn't work? What did you learn? That's the most important question. And what would you do different next time? Or more of if it worked. So let me give you an example. I'll use one of my own personal examples. Years ago, I had learned a new technique. I was in a training, and my business partner and I at the time had called on this company. We had this appointment, and I used this new technique I learned, and it failed miserably, right? Like we got out in the parking lot, and I just wanted to like die. And she said, "What worked?" And I said, "Nothing worked." She goes, "No, no, no. What worked? Something worked. We got an appointment. That's what worked." All right. What didn't work? What didn't work is it landed very flat. What did I learn? And she'll be quiet and she lets me struggle, right? Because she wants to tell me what I learned. I don't know what I learned yet. I learned I'm not ready for this. I was an idiot. I jumped too quickly, whatever, right? No, no, no.
Right.
And then she answers it. So I answered, she answers it. I answered, she answers it. And when she answered it, she
That's been
said,
a great team. That's a
uh,
great thing for a team, a
well,
partnership to do.
it was until it wasn't. I'll tell you that story later. So what didn't work is she said, "Denise, I'll tell you what I think didn't work. It's like as if you took one Spanish lesson and tried to speak to this man in Spanish. You aren't proficient yet. That doesn't mean you can't do this. You just had a higher expectation of an outcome because you were aware of it and you understood the value of this. But again, not understanding alignment with wiring, because my wiring was different than his wiring, and I was setting up all the wrong bells, right? And these are all learning experiences. So you said my partner and I were great together. We were until we weren't. And then when we weren't, it was because we knew our wiring was different. We didn't really understand it. We just knew it was different. And then something happened and we lost 70% of our revenues. Like boom, it was people were leaving us left and right, left and right, left and right. And I was putting pressure on her to do something that she didn't do. And she was putting pressure on me to do things that I don't do, that are not in our strengths. And we imploded.
Oh,
And so it ended a relationship. We didn't even speak to each other for 3 years. However, it does have a happy ending because we did get back together and now we're not partners. She's my coach. And the
oh,
reason she's my coach is I said, no one knows me better than you do.
wow.
So, and now we we color inside our lines and don't expect the other person to be what they're not.
Isn't that great? Wonderful. I'm happy that turned out better. I think that, You'll continue to grow, and I'm happy you were able to get back and working together in a coaching environment. Isn't that something too? You're a coach and you have a coach.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And, again, truth be told, where I believe I'm more of a facilitator than a coach, because a coach is usually, I'm not patient enough to help draw it out of you. But in a cohort, I often say the answers are in the room. And
Right.
I can facilitate the room so that someone can see what they couldn't see before.
Mhm.
And that's what I call making the invisible visible, because that's where my love is, whether it's a profitability lab, a project lab, whatever that is, it's coming from a sense of, um, again, making the invisible visible. They can see, feel, experience it, where in the past it just was floating around and
Wow,
the
that's such a
amygdala kept
gift.
getting hijacked.
That
Lizard
is,
brain.
that's an intuitive gift. Definitely. So you likely see entrepreneurs trying to do it all by themselves. What's the cost of that in energy, growth, opportunity, and how do you help them let go and build trust in others?
Well, remember the phrase that I started with? They're trying to paddle their own kayak and they're trying to do it all, no matter how big if for them to grow, they're going to have to rely on other people. And it was no different than in that volleyball game. I can't win that game by myself. We have to all play and play to our strengths and come together. And we have to do like professional sports, you got to let go of the mistake quickly,
Mm,
because a lot of this is about learn quickly from the mistakes
mhm.
versus ruminating on it and going on and on. So um, the cost to the entrepreneur to try to do it all themselves is, as most of them know, it's burnout, it's lots of things, and then they get in their own way, because then doubt starts to creep in. They start to withdraw, they play smaller,
Yeah,
or they go high stakes, all in, and then they fail. And
right.
then they go, see, I'm not meant for this, right?
Mhm. Yep.
So yeah.
Yeah.
And there's lots of ways. And again, you don't have to have employees. But for those that do have employees, usually, and this is what happened with me and my partner, we started to go into a stressful situation. And I just went right into command and control. Just do what I say. Don't give me a hard time. Just freaking do it. And all we did was no, I'm not going to. You can't make me.
Yep. Yeah.
And we imploded.
Yeah, that happens. But the thing I think is really interesting now for those that are out there on their own is that there are people like you and Lisa at Accelerate where you
Associates.
can,
Yeah.
pardon, did I say it wrong?
Accelerated associates, right. Yeah.
Yeah. That where you can, come up for air and you can find your tribe if you just look around, and you don't have to do it by yourself. That's what
Right.
I found with Lisa and you, that I'm isolated up here in northern Michigan, and finding Lisa and her systems, they really do make you feel like you're not all alone. That's so important.
So I got to ask you, are you really isolated because you're in northern Michigan, Rose? Come on, you've got this extended team of people all over the state, all over the place that you could reach out to in a heartbeat that would take your call.
That's true. It just takes, and it's true. And when you got your to-do list so long, where do you have to work it. You have to go out of your way to insert insert it. And that would be a good lesson to learn, I think.
Because it doesn't have to be. If it is to be, it's up to me. That's kind of remember, I was mentored by a man who kept saying, your environment is greater than your will. So if the environment you've surrounded yourself with, which is kind of the American way, is I got to do it myself, Well, do you? Do you really? Can you do it all yourself? And there's a cost, as you know, there's only so much bandwidth.
Right. That's so true. Very important. Very a lot of wisdom being dropped here today on the podcast. So let's go to something from your point of view, your lens. What makes a sales partner or business alliance healthy versus toxic? What red flags should listeners watch out for?
Well, let me go back to wiring, and I'll go back to my own situation that I talked about when my partner and I imploded. Um, when it's healthy, you understand your roles. And it's not about getting all the credit or dominating the situation or I've got to win or competing against each other. When it's not healthy, when it's toxic, you're walking on eggshells around each other. That's where our relationship evolved to. We were walking on eggshells around each other. We were uncomfortable. We were, I was worrying that I was losing it all. And actually, as verbal as I am, when I get scared, I have no words. I kind of, I don't speak. She gets scared, she speaks, and she would come out and I would go in. And so that's when it became toxic. Yet, if you can come from one not needing to dominate, because then I went to, okay, all hands on deck. Everybody's got to do this. We've got to fix this. We got to right this ship. We're going down. And that was when we started to butt heads. And we started to blame, point fingers, right? Versus,
So,
okay, clean
yeah,
slate.
right. Let's go into the wiring. You've mentioned it a few times.
Yes.
What if someone out there in the podcast world want to dig a little deeper into the human wiring? How do you figure out your own human, how do they know how to do that? How do you find out how you're wired?
That's a great question. And it's not just something you can just figure out. We even do a little in our workshops. We give a taste of it, but we tell them you just are getting a sense to really understand how you are wired, because there's degrees of it as well, is that there is an assessment to take. So if they want to know more about this, they can go to accelerateassociates.com and type in human wiring. And there'll be a whole slew of things that it can take them down and help them understand more about what wiring is.
Excellent. I'll put that in the show notes so
Great.
everyone will be able to have access to that, because it sounds like, and I think you're mentioning and you're letting us know that if we understand how, let's say how I'm wired, you know how you're wired, then we'll collaborate in a more effective, productive way.
Yeah, and you don't have to have opposites together. But for instance, one of the components of this is your level of autonomy. And do you, and how you think. Do you think that you like to create your own ideas and act on them, and that your idea is the best idea? And someone else might want to have, what does the team think,
Mhm.
right? Or if you have two people who both think our idea is the best idea, by the way, I'm married to that person. We both think our idea is the best idea. And it's how do you work with it? Because I'm not going to leave him over that. However, how do I work within it?
Mhm.
Because every so often I go, that's not the hill to die on. Whether we paint the deck from the top to the bottom or the bottom to the top. You know?
Right, right.
But
What's
and he said to
important?
me, it was so funny. He said, "We've been married for decades, and this is the first time we've done a project together without like at each other's throats." And I said, "Because I
Excellent.
now know your wiring."
Excellent, excellent. That's so cool. So when you look back on your career, What's a major setback or moment of rejection that taught you your most valuable lesson?
Well, I've had numerous ones of those. And I'll use one. I had when I created painless prospecting, I loved it and I loved training. And one of my clients was UPS, and I was going all around the country doing trainings for them. Well, they were consolidating and they were looking for they needed 800 people trained in 90 days. And yeah, you look at that face. I said, I can't do that, but what I could do is license the work to you, train your trainers, and have you do it. So
Right.
we did a pilot. The end of the pilot, they came back and they said, Denise, this isn't going to work. Um, your work, the manual I created for this, because I'm kind of I'm in the moment kind of person, right? I train the way I'm in the moment. And it needed to be structured and so on and so forth. And even though I put a manual together, they said, this isn't worth the money you're asking for. You're worth the money. It's just not this, right?
Right.
And I was brokenhearted. And I went, okay. And so we parted ways, and I never worked, I had worked with them for like 3 or 4 years. So 30 days later, I'm telling somebody about what I do for a living with this painless prospecting training. And the man said, I think my friend has been sent to, it was a banking, and they're taking on another territory, and they have no presence there. I think they could use what you have to offer. So I went, great. So I started to work with them. Same concept. Trained in the pilot, trained their trainers. And at the end, they said, we don't want our trainers doing it. We'd like you to train 800 people in 90 days. And I said, I can do that. So I went from my idea is the best idea. I know how to do this to know what does the client want and how can I? And then I brought in other trainers and we did great and it was fabulous and they got great results. And but that's just a quick one of those
Wow,
because
isn't that
I kept
something?
holding on to my vision. Yeah, that it
Awesome.
had to
Very
look
good
my way.
story. I'm so excited to hear that. That's great. A great valuable lesson for everyone. So if our listeners out there in podcast land want to shift from playing to not lose to playing to win, what's one micro action they can take, like in sales, mindset, or team? What what would they do? Like if you could give them one snippet to play, not to lose, but to play to win, what one action would you give them?
First thing I would say is go to paper and pen or on your computer and answer this question. What are you afraid of? Because there's a big fear there. Inner critic is there, and there's a fear. And that's the first part of that. Just flush it out. What is it? And then the second part of that is what's one little baby step you could take to move forward? And it will
Perfect.
calm the inner critic and help you validate what it is that you want to do.
Fantastic. What a day. What a great day. So before we wrap it up, Denise, please let us, do you have any words of wisdom or final thoughts that you'd like to share with our audience?
Um, it's predictable that doubt will come up. There's even a piece inside of the book that talks about there's an emotional cycle of change.
Mhm.
And it weaves between optimism and pessimism. But if you stay on this, if you work through it, there is more optimism than there is pessimism. The problem is, most of us are wired that as soon as it starts to get uncomfortable and that inner critic starts screaming, that we will stop or veer away from it and start something new because we want to feel good.
Yes.
And
That's
so we start something new and then we go, it's just a slide and we never get the momentum. If you can push through and there's 5 stages. That last, the low stage is called the Valley of Despair. If you can journal and work through that and keep taking one foot in front of the other, taking one more step, you will eventually get back into optimism and you will move beyond this. But it's predictable that that will happen.
We sure needed that. That was such a good and I really helped me. It is inspiring. You are an inspiration.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much for joining us, Denise. And I would love to have you back after your book is out and help you launch
I'd
it.
love to come back.
Okay, let's do that. So with
Thanks.
that, thanks again, and we'll see you guys next time. Like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.